Good morning. It's Saturday, October 17th, and it's windy and gonna get windier, but dry so far. Looking like rain this evening. Hopefully we're gonna get the last 15 or 20 acres finished up on the field. We started yesterday, excuse me, and get our last field opened up and get a little bit run off of that today, and then probably take tomorrow off because it sounds like it's gonna rain and be cloudy all day tomorrow. So the forecast next week looks nice. We don't have very much left. Probably a good opportunity to take a break. But plenty of action today, I think. Well, we're gonna crawl up on top of a bin on probably the windiest part of the windiest day of the past few and try to fix somebody else's screw up on this bin spreader. Notice I parked the vehicle distance away from the bin, so anything that falls off won't hit the car. And if I fall off, I'll hit the nice soft ground that's bone dry instead of a vehicle, I guess. Maybe the ground is softer. Anyway, I kind of have a plan. We'll see how that changes when we get up there, but I've got basically everything unnecessary cleaned out of my pockets and tools and measuring tapes and everything else in them. So we'll see how this goes when we get to the top. Well, the game plan might work. We'll see. My original thought was to maybe try to wrap a chain around the auger inside here, but because this has a pretty long spout that's not very big at the bottom, getting up around there was going to be not the easiest, so I just went around the tube. So what we're going to try to do here is we've got a chain on here kind of loose that will keep this from falling all the way to the bottom and getting bent while I take these bolts loose. So hopefully I'm going to be able to take these bolts loose and then hook a rope onto it and lower it down. I hope. I really have no idea how much this thing weighs because I can't find a spec for that anywhere. It doesn't look super heavy, but it could be heavier than it looks. So I'm hoping that it won't be too unmanageable, but that's why we have the chain here, so that we can kind of figure that out with something that should be secure enough to hold it. And then hopefully be able to lower this down, work on it in the bin, and then hoist it back up. It seems like, so the bolts that have to come out are down there, which that's probably a 4-foot trough, I would guess. And the trough has to extend out about another 3 feet, we'll say 2.5 maybe. It seemed like that was going to be pretty impossible to deal with on a ladder in a safe manner, to be able to put a ladder up inside. So the choices are either come out the top or drop it down, and it seems like dropping it down probably is going to be less awkward, or at least less likely to get me killed. So I'm going to maybe make some marks on these tubes because all the level is adjusted by how these are centered there and the heights on these bolts, which it's probably not going to go back perfect. Not the most inspiring design in my opinion, but nobody asked me, I guess. Because to get the thing out, you have to take these loose, which means you sort of lose any established reference point for anything else. So we're going to mark these, loosen these bolts up. I think probably, yeah, we have to get them, or at least one of them, to get it slid in. Maybe we can leave 2 tight. That might make things easier. Yeah, I think that'll work. We'll just loosen one to get it off, and then hopefully the other 2 we can sort of finagle down into the hole. So maybe that won't be too bad. But I'm going to mark which one of these brackets is which hole, or at least mark one of them so that I can get it back in the same orientation and hopefully not have to adjust it a huge amount once we get it back up here. Good news. Grain spreader is down. I'm uninjured. It was more of a controlled fall, so it gently landed in the grain. It is heavy enough. It's going to be fun getting back up here though. All right, so here's what we've got. The adjustment on this for bin size is established by how long this chute is. So this piece, you can see the seam right here. This is welded onto the, or actually it's bolted on, but attached to the hopper, doesn't move. This part can slide in and out. There's a set of holes where the bolts are. There's one there and there's one here. So I can extend that out. The problem becomes this only overlaps by, what's that, 3 inches, maybe 3.5. So the instructions say there's a piece that goes between there that you need if you extend it out for a 36-foot bin, or I think it's greater than 30 feet, if I remember right. The way this is set up is for a 17-foot bin. It's more than 17 feet from the center to the wall. So, not right. Which is disappointing because when you pay a contractor to put up a bin, you expect them to know what they're doing and be the expert so that you don't have to be, and do things like this when that hole is 10 feet off the ground, not when it's 25 feet off of 5 feet of grain. So when I called up the dealer, they told me that I didn't need anything, that I was wrong. Which, if you're in customer service, telling the customer they're wrong as your solution is probably not good. So I'm gonna have to make a piece to put in here because they weren't willing to help me. It looks like we're gonna extend this out, take some measurements. Hopefully, I had a piece of steel that might be the right stuff, but I need to figure out for sure. Hopefully I don't have to run all over heck trying to find a piece of steel that's the right stuff to use. But I wanna do this right because taking this thing in and out is not the most fun process. Anyway, let's pull some bolts and get the chute the right length at least, and then we'll figure out that rib here in a little bit. And basically the reason that this matters is that the way this whole thing establishes the spread is how far, each chunk of the flow gets diverted out or down the chute, which would be a further release point to throw it farther to the wall. So what's in here right now, I shoveled about an hour on, and I still have issues because it's enough taller in the middle, and there's not a lot of grain in here right now, so it was blowing air through. Like the grain next to the wall is all dry, even though I had it shoveled out halfway level. It still ran, the fan ran for 2 or 3 days before I had a chance to get in here and do that. So basically I've got dry corn against the wall and probably relatively wet, although it should be dry enough that it hopefully isn't going to spoil. Here in the middle, so at that point you end up, basically all the air goes through the dry corn and you don't dry the wet corn. So we turned the fan off, but I've been scrambling on everything else for the last week and a half or however long it's been. I think it was 2 weeks ago that I sort of figured out that I thought this was screwed up. That was when I shoveled this out, I believe, because it was a Saturday. So, fun times. Other people's incompetence makes my life fun. Okay, we got the chute extended out to the right spot. Haven't taken any measurements yet. I think I might have to go look at the instructions. So it looks like there are holes where you can move this last or the second to last, depending on how you count curved piece. However, the directions that I saw indicate that there's a piece that you need to hook this together, and I think that stays where it's at. So I may need to do a little more research, but I'm pretty sure we're going to fabricate a piece to go in here because the piece that we should have got with the bin isn't here. Well, got a little break from the grain spreader project to shuffle a wagon to the field. As I was coming down the road, I see Dad up on top of the grain tank, so I'm not sure what's going on, but we might have some festivities. Well, Dad headed home with the combine. I'm pulling the full wagon home, and then we're going to figure out what's going on. Basically, it seems that the front unloading auger in the grain tank, one of the ones that I replaced in the off season, the sprocket and the end of the shaft where it drives is spinning, but the auger is not. So probably that means that it either broke the welds where the shaft part was welded into the tube for the auger, the center tube in the middle of the flighting, because I'm pretty sure it's pipe and then just has shafts on the ends where the bearings are. Or something else broke. Gonna find out. But the adventure definitely continues. Well, from the looks of things, it cracked right on the edge of the weld. I don't know if you'll be able to really tell, but that shaft right there is it's actually a shaft where it goes through this piece of metal, but then there's a tube here that they're welded together. And right on the left edge of that weld is a nice clean break where it broke away from the tube that basically is the center of the auger. So we're gonna try to get that fixed. So after lunch, right before lunch, we got done welding, or I got done welding. which I didn't have the camera up there with me, but I'll kind of show you the process and the beauty of our setup here. So we've got the MIG welder sitting on the step, roped the bottle onto the railing so that it hopefully doesn't fall off and launch itself. We are welded up, so basically took a die grinder, V'd out where the weld was, and then filled it in. So did sort of a quarter of the way, turned the shaft, turned the auger half a turn, did that spot, and then did a couple more spots to get it stuck down. Try to get some video up in the grain tank so that you can appreciate the standing on the head that was necessary to make this happen. Might be more selective about aftermarket part sources in the future. So these are the old augers that came out, and I was just kind of looking things over. So basically what happened on the one that we've got on there is that where this shaft is welded into the pipe, it cracked right along the edge of the weld. And I was kind of looking at this one. I was curious because like this shaft probably sticks in here a little ways. I mean, I don't know if that's half an inch or 4 inches, but some distance. And I was kind of curious if maybe there was a hole drilled and it was plug welded to make that more secure. I don't see anything here. I'm kind of tempted to make that improvement. When I was V'ing out the old weld, it seemed like the weld acted really hard, and like mostly I was grinding into the tube. So I don't know if the weld is really hard or the tube is really soft, but that may have been a factor in it cracking. It also might have just been bad penetration on the part of the person who did the welding. I'm not real sure. But I don't see any signs that this was plug welded. May take a drill up there and drill a small hole and see if we hit the shaft, and if we do, make it a little bigger and try to do a couple spots to tie back in other than just on that front edge. Okay, I think we're gonna call this good. I went ahead and plug welded a couple spots. This one's pretty ugly, but maybe it'll help, or maybe things will fail more epically the next time. I think this is stuck pretty good, so hopefully we'll get through this season at least. Well, there might be a carbide die grinder burr in that corn. Might be in the grain tank of the combine still, but I can't find it. So we might sell that one for $4 a bushel. Hopefully $4 a bushel. Just about have that field finished, which means I've got full wagon, and I'm gonna have a little bit more to go into this bin. So I need to crawl up and see what things look like. So should I take the ladder or the stairs? Might as well take the stairs, right? So mostly just need to see if the spreader has been spreading level. It didn't look too bad the last time I was up here, but I haven't actually crawled down inside. Wind must be blowing a few kernels out. Looks pretty decent, actually. We're a little high here, but it also looks like it's humped up more. This is more flat and there's more of a hump there. I think we might just go ahead and spread it. I'm gonna have to shovel, or I probably will shovel a little bit. Most of this, I mean, the corn that's going in here on top, at least at the elevator, is testing like 13. I'm not sure if it's actually quite that dry. But it's not gonna need to be air dried really at all. We'll probably run the fans a little bit just to kind of get everything aired out. And then once it gets cold, freeze everything. Because storing grain is sort of proportional to the moisture content of the grain and the temperature. So the colder it is, or the lower of the moisture in the grain, the longer it will keep. So normally, once it gets really cold, we'll turn the fans on and freeze everything, run them for 2-3 days to get all the heat out, and then it should stay cold well into the summer, as long as it's at least in the center. It might warm up on the sides of the bin where the sun's shining on the tin and everything, but not bad. I'm actually moderately impressed. It seemed like this spreader did pretty well last year also. I'm not sure why the one on the 42 is so much worse. Well, a little bit later than hoped, but that field is finished. We're closing in on 4 o'clock, or actually it might be after 4. Not sure if the clock in the tractor up here is right or not. But we've got a truck that needs to go to town, part of a load to go into the bin, and the bin that the next field goes into is the one with the spreader that's torn apart. I don't know how long it's going to take to get that functional. Also have augers up at the home site that would be nice to get taken down and bins closed up and the holes filled in before it rains, while everything is dry and the corn isn't wet and rotting. So I think we've made an executive decision that we're going to pull the combine back in the shop and deal with other stuff. Going a little bit early this evening. Maybe enjoying a cold beverage before 10 p.m. Maybe. I'm not sure about that yet. But kind of try to get stuff organized, and it sounds like it's supposed to rain tonight. If it doesn't rain tonight, it's going to be miserable tomorrow. So the plan is to take tomorrow off. I've got, I think, about 55 acres left in the one field that's left, which should be a short 2 days if nothing breaks. Knock on wood. There's no wood in here. Ah, there's some. Knock on wood. So the forecast for most of next week looks pretty good. For the most part, if this corn picks up a half point of moisture, that's not going to be a bad thing, because I think most of it's pretty dry anyway. So that's where we're at. Let's get some corn in the bin, take some augers down. Big auger is cleaned up and back to its home on the hillside and vacuumed out pretty well. Not enough grain here to really matter cost-wise much, but that'll feed a family of mice for approximately 3 years, and we would prefer to have them not living in the auger. I need to close up this bin as well as the 36, so I need to crawl up. And the 36, we have just a drop cord for the spreader, so I need to get that unhooked and dropped down and get the hatches all closed on these guys. And as long as that doesn't take too long, I would like to get the 8-inch auger to the drying bin pulled down too. There's a bunch of corn in the hole that at the bottom end is buried in that right now is pretty dry, but probably won't be come tomorrow morning. So that's pretty much where we're at. Gonna start crawling up bins. One more auger down and a bunch of stuff to put away. Lizzie is convinced that there is a mouse in the vicinity, which there was, but she didn't see it run that way. So she's been at it for probably 20 minutes or half an hour at this point, because that was when I first pulled the auger out of the hole, and I've been messing around with quite a bit. But keeping her occupied and out of my hair, I guess.